Hello friends, now let us take up the concept number 8, 16.8, Varargs. This is relatively a new concept because it was introduced in Java 5.0 version. This concept is called with different names, just you remember, otherwise sometimes you may be confused. Normally popular name is Varargs or otherwise var dash hyphen dash args. Somebody variable length argument list, variable length argument list. Somebody calls variable variable arguments. Somebody call variable arity parameters. All these names refers to Varargs only. Don't confuse by name. So popular name is Varargs or otherwise variable length argument list. Okay. Now let us see what is the importance and what is the functionality of that. Now we write a call like this, a header, a function call. For a function definition we write header, or a prototype we write that. In that, calculate product into A into B. It is meant for two integer type arguments. In this context, once again I tell you, arguments parameters, they are interchangeably used, synonymously used, but you have to understand slight difference. Arguments are passed from a method call. Whatever arguments you pass through a method call, those are called arguments. And in the function definition or method definition header, you write like this and all that. These are called parameters or formal arguments. That name differentiation, because you must follow that, otherwise sometimes you are confused. Now already explained to you Varargs, what are the different names, multiple names for that and all that. So don't confuse. So arguments means what we pass through a method call. Parameters means what we write formally in the method header. Those are called parameters, that you remember. So in this case it is meant for only two arguments of int type. That means we are supposed to pass only two integer type arguments. If you pass 0 argument or 1 argument or 3 or more arguments, error will come. That means you must pass only two integer type arguments, nothing else, then it leads to error. So because of this restriction, lot of rigidity is created. Suppose number of arguments are more, we have to write different definition. Even method overloading is there. For 2 arguments one definition, for 3 arguments other definition, 4 arguments different definition, like that we are writing. In order to overcome this limitation, this Varargs mechanism technique was introduced. First, for this purpose you have to understand the technique, the syntax. Here you see calculate product into A into B, it is meant for two arguments. Here same thing, Varargs int ellipsis n, it is meant for 0 to n number. That means you can give, if you don't give any arguments also, no error will come for this method, and if you give 1, 2, 3 up to n, you give any number 0 or more, any arguments, it works. So it creates a lot of flexibility, and the utility of method also is very high, because it is meant for n number of arguments, 0 to n number of arguments. That's why we need not write number of definitions depending on the number of arguments. But in some cases compiler gets ambiguity. Ambiguity mainly in case of method overloading. In such cases, you have to specifically ignore this Varargs and do it whatever is required. Actually, where compiler gets ambiguity, there you should not use Varargs. Already in method overloading concept I explained, sometimes compiler gets ambiguity and it stops, it terminates compilation. In such case, originally what you have to do and all that in particular situation, you have to do that. And here one more thing also I am telling you. In main, what we are writing? Argument, string, args we are writing. So far in all programs we applied. If you want Varargs approach, you can write that. For that purpose, string, ellipsis, args, you write. This is also a valid one. First time you learn and note it down. Now, let us focus on the advantage of the functionality of the Varargs. Through this demo, I am going to explain to you. Actually, here guest string, actually guest names we are writing, and ellipsis. That means it is meant for displaying guest names. So, it is meant for 0 to n number of guests. We need not specify, we need not know beforehand. Now, you see void display string ellipsis guest, Varargs I have used for string arguments. Now, for loop I have written string name, this is for each loop. For each loop I have written, it is more smart. For each loop, already I explained this concept in our rest chapter. If you do not remember, you just recall or study it again. Thereafter, in this for loop, I am writing SOP statement, then welcome to Mr. or Mrs. and a name I am writing. So, in this case, what is the smartness? This is the method call. When method call display is made, I may pass 0 arguments. 0 arguments also it is executed for nothing, no output will come. Now, here you see I am passing 2 arguments, then Akash and Bharat. Akash and Bharat, 2 names are printed for this call. And next one Raj, Ram and Ravi, 3 names I passed, then also it prints. Next, I have written 4 names, Sri, Sita, Saila and Suma. 4 names I have written and 4 are printed. If you write n number of names also, they are printed. 0 to n number of names you can write, arguments you can pass, then it demonstrates its smartness in the coding. So, the size of our code will be less. We need not write a number of, just in this case, how many definitions you are supposed to write and all that you just see. In the present example, you have to write 1, 2, 3 definitions. Here, it is not required. Only one definition is enough. So, you remember that this is the functionality of that. However, once you execute that and see, and here certain do's and don'ts are there syntax wise, that also you must remember. Now, first you see legal Varargs, these are do's. Now, void display int ellipsis x, this is meant for 0 to n number of int type arguments. One thing I am telling you, here there is no concession, int means int only. If you pass float or some other thing, error will come, but 0 to n number of arguments it works. Next, void display, actually here 2 arguments are there. One is char c, that is normal one. That means along with this, if you want to write some other arguments, 1 or more, you can write, no problem. Here char c, int d, int I, double d, you write, nothing wrong. but it should be the last one. It should be the last one. Varargs, whatever you write, it should be the last one. That means here you may write n number of things, n number of arguments that you can write, but whenever you write Vararg, it should be the last one. That point you must remember. Thereafter, it is not only for primitives. If you want to write reference types also, you can write, that is 0 to n reference types. Here you see I am passing room type, reference type, and room I have written. It is meant for 1 or 1 to n, sorry, 0 to n reference variables we can pass through these. Now, let us see the don'ts also, that is illegal Varargs. This you must remember that. Here, first one you see, ellipses should be written between data type and identifier. Here, what we have written? After the identifier we have written, that is illegal, that is not valid. And next one, we can write only one Varargs for one method. Here we have written 2, int x and double y, that is not possible. Only one, it should be the last one. That point you remember. Thereafter, now we see in this what mistake you committed. We have written this first, Varargs first, next normal. So, this is illegal. How can you make it legal? This first, this next, then that is legal. So, all that do's and don'ts you remember, and you write number of programs. Once you write 3-4 programs on that, all possibilities you work out, and then you can get a perfect command over this. This provides you, this enables you to write smart code in your program. It reduces the size of the code in your program.